Hello, everyone. Welcome to Discover E's Persist Series, a monthly virtual speaker series connecting thousands of women around the world for uplifting conversations that help us persevere and thrive in engineering and technology careers. I'm Mimi Irvin, a startup project manager at Amazon. You might remember me as the host of the 2020 Global Marathon. If you participated in the Global Marathon last year, it's great to have you back. You can expect the Persist series will continue the tradition of providing a space for women around the world to gather virtually and navigate issues that transcend borders. If you're new here, welcome. We're so glad you've joined us. It goes without saying that 2020 was a big year with a lot of sudden changes felt around the world. From the ongoing pandemic that affects nearly every aspect of our lives to continuing conversations and actions for justice and equity, we're carrying nearly a year of worldwide reflection, struggle, and perseverance into 2021. In a time when individuals, organizations, and institutions are taking a steady look in the mirror, we have a unique opportunity to shed light on the systemic barriers women face in engineering and tech, and recognize how these barriers are amplified and multiplied for women of color, members of the LGBTQ community, and individuals with disabilities. We're looking forward to joining you each month right here on Zoom to share our stories and keep critical conversations going about how we persist in our careers and help shape the inclusive organizations and culture the engineering and tech profession needs to do its best work. And I can't think of a better woman to join us as the host for the 2021 Persist Series, a lead quality assurance engineer at Facebook, a graduate of the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, and a longtime advocate for minorities in STEM, just like me. I'm pleased to pass the mic over to your host, Andronica Klaas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andronica Klaas, and I'm so excited to be your host for Discover E's 2021 Persist Series. We're teaming up with women and their supporters to amplify voices, facilitate conversation, and coordinate actions to build belonging for women in engineering and tech careers. I've always been passionate about creating opportunities for girls and minorities to see their pathways to success in STEM. I currently work as a QA engineering lead at Facebook, a role that I very much enjoy and grow a lot from. But what keeps my heart beating is not only sharing my story in hopes of inspiring others to build intentional programming, but also understanding the needs of minority and first-generation students and working in partnership with corporations to build support mechanisms that eventually allow for organic recruitment pipelines. I myself am a first-generation college graduate whose love for STEM was sparked by a moment of ingenuity in my preteen years. Last year, I had the pleasure of sharing my story as a speaker in a session titled From Obstacle to Inspiration. Shameless plug, feel free to give it a look in your spare time. As your host, I'm looking forward to hearing your stories, sharing in your experiences, and working together to change the landscape of women in engineering and technology. And what better way to kick off the series than to showcase a team of women who have created the welcoming and inclusive culture we're imagining for tomorrow. I'm excited to introduce you to a team of inspiring engineers at Spin Master, a global toy and entertainment company bringing us some of the most well-known toys for kids, from PAW Patrol to Rubik's Cube. These women are bringing their A game in creativity and collaboration, working together and making toys for a living. And like many of you, their teamwork looks a bit different these days. From digital games to award-winning TV shows, they're reimagining what imagination can take us and adapting how they work together in a virtual world to make that magic happen. I am very happy to introduce you to these 5 inspiring women. Amanda Bright, Director Product Development Engineer. Diana Young, VP Product Development Engineer. Deepika Phoebe, Process Development Engineer. Marissa Lima, Product Development Engineer. And last but not least, Vanessa Raponi, Product Development Engineer. I just got a sneak peek of this episode, and I must tell you, these ladies are absolutely amazing. Ladies, take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Raquel Raponi, and I'm super excited to be back here again for a second year in a row. I was a part of the Breaking the Rules series last year, and we are super excited to be kicking off the Persist series for the Discovery team. So as you'll recall, I'm the founder of ENGIqueries Canada, which is an LGBTQ organization that services from coast to coast with engineering students in the LGBTQ community. And post-university, I've started working at Spin Master, which is a toy manufacturing company, and has introduced me to an incredible group of people that I'm really excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to today. So I've convinced some of my colleagues to join me, and they're going to do some intros as well. We're all part of the product development team, and I'm working currently on our robotics and RC team, so remote controlled toys, flying toys, and it's been a really awesome experience. So I'll introduce you to my team members. We've got Deepika, Marissa, and Amanda. Why don't, Deepika, you introduce yourself first?
Hi, everyone. I'm Deepika Phoebe. I'm a process engineer at Spin Master, and I lead the development of our global PLM tool, while also looking at how teams can collaborate better to increase their efficiencies overall. I grew up in India, and I moved to Canada to do my engineering at the University of Waterloo. I did my management engineering there, which focuses on analyzing how organizations operate and apply engineering skills to increase their efficiencies. Spin Master is my first full-time job out of school, and I've been working here for 3.5 years now. Yeah, that's me. Amanda, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go next. So I'm Amanda Bright. I currently am in the role of Director of Product Development here at Spin Master. So I worked with these lovely women here. And I came here through Spin Master in LA, actually. We have 3 creative offices in the organization, one based in Toronto, which is where headquarters is, one in Los Angeles, and then one stationed in Long Island City, along with global offices all over the world. But I was in the Los Angeles office for about a year before moving to Canada. Before that, I was in Los Angeles for quite some time. I worked at actually a competitor for quite a while, almost 10 years, working across different portfolios in the toy business. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so I actually started there as an entry-level engineer in product development, and worked on a number of the vehicle brands, the doll brands, infant and preschool businesses, working with licensors as well. As part of that role, I also moved all over the world. I lived in Hong Kong for a while, lived in New York City, sort of moved between the offices, which continues to be the case. And before that, I was in aerospace and spent about a year doing that. And had some fun work that sounds fun when you talk about it, but not so fun actually being in the role, which is why I made a deliberate change to sort of move away from aerospace, which we'll probably touch on later today. Over to you, Marissa.
Thank you. So I'm Marissa. I'm actually from Portugal. So I grew up most of my life in Portugal. I was born in Canada, but I moved there when I was 7 years old, and my whole family is from there. I grew up in a very small town that I had to walk 10 minutes to catch the bus to the city. That passed twice a day, and I went to university there. I studied mechanical engineering. I did an integrated master's, which is it's a 5-year program we have, where I specialized mostly in dynamics, so dynamics of mechanics. And it never occurred to me that product development was a job at the time. It was never, I didn't know anybody who worked in product development. I didn't know it was a career choice. At the time, it was mostly just you go into the energy sector, or you go into design, or you go into the manufacturing world, and that's it. So I actually made the choice to move to Canada because I had the citizenship, because I had been born here. And I decided to move to Toronto because it's such a multicultural city. And Portugal is a very small country that doesn't have very diverse population. So I didn't see myself working there at the beginning of my career when I ended university, and I wanted a more diverse environment for me to get my career started and to learn as much as possible as fast as I could. So I moved to Toronto, and I actually started working in the automotive industry to gain a lot of technical experience, which I didn't have as a student. My degree was very theoretical, and I wanted to show that I wanted to learn as much as I could on the technical side on early in my career. So I started working in the automotive industry, like I said, in a company that did tests for the automotive industry. So I was a mechanical designer there for almost 3 years. And then I bumped into Spin Master one day when I was looking for jobs because I wanted a bit of a change. And I started looking into the product development world, and it totally fascinated me that it could be a job. So here I am today, 2 years later. I work in the activities team. So I'm also a product development engineer like Vanessa, and I work under Amanda. And I work with brands like Kinetic Sand and toys for Tokaboka and Sago Mini mostly. And I love what I do. So that's a little bit about me. And thank you. Thanks everybody for being here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diana Young, and I am the Vice President of Product Development at Spin Master. I've been with the company for 5 years and am a mechanical and biomedical engineering by degree.
All right, so thank you all so much. I'm so glad you were able to join me here. And I know in this crazy COVID Zoom world, it's ideally we would have all been together. But I think what's so special and unique about us and our team is that we have this really incredible connection and relationship that we're almost more than colleagues in a way. Like we're truly our friends. We truly are almost a family. And I think all of us have worked in different backgrounds. Like a lot of us have been in more industrial, very male-dominated industries. So I'm curious about just kind of our collective thoughts on what's really been like the difference between those types of environments versus what we have here. And I can start with something quick off the top of my head. Is I just find that for me, I'm a queer woman of color. That is really scandalous in a lot of the engineering spaces to just authentically be who I am and be open and honest about myself. And I've definitely been in environments where maybe it's not always so explicitly overt racism or overt homophobia necessarily, but there's just a lot of the kind of discomfort and like the types of conversations that are being had are just like innately exclusionary. Whereas I find at Spin, I remember my very first day, our colleague Molly took me out for lunch, and she's an open lesbian and talked about a date night with her girlfriend. And I was like, oh my gosh, just knowing off the first day of work that just being queer in the workplace is something that's acceptable and open at Spin was just like a huge weight off my shoulders. Like, okay, I don't need to hide who I am here. Like I can be myself. And I don't know, have you guys found that in other ways as well?
Yeah, and I actually remember something that just popped into my head that it didn't happen to me personally, but we had an intern in our team last year who was a girl, and she mentioned to me once that she was so happy, and she was just saying, I'm so happy because she had really bad days when she would be on her period and she wouldn't be able to function. She just said, I get into work and I'm just not functional. I can't be here. And she said that for a long time, she was always worried about telling that to her manager because she heard other people say that they were nervous about saying that to somebody and saying, I can't work today because I'm having really, really bad cramps. Mm-hmm. And she said the first time she mentioned it to her manager here at Spin, the first thing they said was, just go home. No problem. Just go. You're not okay. It's fine. And when she told it to me, it seemed so obvious, just knowing the type of team that we have, that nobody would ever put that in cause, that if you're not okay, if you can't work, then that's totally fine. You don't have to.
You hit at the core of what Amanda and I try to instill in the team, which is that, we care about the company and Spin Master, and we need to be successful. Otherwise, we won't have a company to be at. But always first and foremost is the people. Because at the end of the day, if our people aren't being developed and aren't happy to be here, then we failed, right? And, there's a high probability that we're not going to all work together forever. Although I would love to, there's likely that one of the people on this call is going to leave and go somewhere else eventually. And, that relationship that we have is by far more important than in any individual project that is, for the company.
The people you place in your organization and the people you place on your team have a really big impact on how work feels and how much people show up at work. And everyone's impacted by their peers and the people they work with every single day. So there's a big responsibility in choosing people on your team who really sort of live and breathe the values that the organization has and that you have in your team. So I think that's a unique thing for us, actually, is that, by nature of being a toy company and hiring, creative thinkers, right? This is not a traditional business for engineers. It's not a traditional company by any means. So you can't hire your traditional engineer into these roles and have them love it and be successful and thrive and really fit in well. So that's a big one. That's a big one for me. Yeah.
Well, something I find so interesting is that some of us are talking about like whether it's failures or like tough days or things that are really challenging, we're still referencing male members of the team that were respecting us and treating us well and understanding what was happening. And I think that's so interesting because our kind of team dynamic is we are, I think, basically 50-50 or roughly as such. But what's so kind of critical there is like, not only do we have the environment of like just having the female support system, like Deepika, Marissa, and I have a WhatsApp chat that we're just constantly like venting to each other and having that support network, which is amazing. But equally, like just knowing that it's not just about the women on the team, it's also about how we integrate into the men and into the whole team collectively. And like this is something that at Engie Queers we were always talking about, is it's about that integration into everyday life. Like there's always a place for safe spaces and being with your own community, but fundamentally in day-to-day existence, like you need to be who you are and be accepted, and otherwise you're just going to be in a constant state of having a lot of issues with your performance. Because just on the day-to-day standpoint, like especially with a job like ours, it's very demanding. We need to be really engaged not 24/7, but like during the whole, like basically 24/7, but during like the time we're here, we need to be on, we need to be focused, we need to be working with all these different team members. And in order to like get that intrinsic motivation to do our job really well, you need to feel comfortable, right? I feel like it's as simple as that.
I think Amanda hit it, right? I mean, she talked about the people that we've hired, which is actually all three of you have come on since I've been here. But if I look at the team, a lot of people that I inherited when I took on this position 5 years ago are still, with the organization. And Marissa, the person that you mentioned, right? I mean, Amanda's, as she moves into her new role, her backfill was on the team. So I didn't hire him, but I think we've had the team self-select based on the culture that we've created, right? So some people have left because the culture wasn't a good fit for them, and that's okay. And we've hired people who fit into the culture and past that. So it's more than, I think it's always easy. I should say that it's easier to hire people who fit into the culture. And I think, the sign of truly a good cultural community is that the people who are already on the team can come and say, this wasn't the culture of the team before because it wasn't. But, you can ask, the Hermans and the Ians who have been with the team for over 10 years, and they'll tell you that they are happy with this culture, right? And they're happier with this culture. And if they were to leave, which I hope they never do, they'll create this culture at their next company. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the important thing for me. I look at my success as a leader is am I imparting this openness and collaboration on our team? And are they going to take it up with the other companies that they go to? And I think the answer is yes.
Well, and do you find that culture that we've cultivated here, I'm assuming all of us have had some sort of experience in an opposing culture. Do you remember what that was like, and how, if, to some of our audience members, they might be in that current place right now, and how do they kind of, like what advice would we give them to speak out against these things and try to get to our kind of state?
I think a big thing for us is, everyone takes part in it. It's not like one person leading the culture. It's not one person organizing things. Even when like COVID hit and we all had to like start working from home, like people organized like Zoom drop-in calls just so that you can like replicate some of the culture that you had at work. And like Vanessa, you set up like the bi-weekly like touch point where people can just like join and like share anything they want, because usually at work we would we would share those things, but we would see each other so often. And then there's just so many people that put in an effort. So I think it's not one person's responsibility. It's if everybody on the team recognizes how important it is and they do their part little at a time. I think that's what's been like driving our culture in the way it is now.
Honestly, the greatest strength that we have in this organization is our ability to talk to each other with this level of transparency and this lack of fear. Like I can go to Diana and I can say, hey, I'm having a really hard time. And like, I don't know what to do. And I feel like I'm losing a lot of faith in the organization. And like, what am I supposed to do about that? And then Diana can have a very like rational response to that. And that's huge for me. Like I had never, ever had that. And for me, honestly, it's the difference between not working here and working here. And I think if I give anybody advice sort of outside the organization, outside of our company, who's trying to sort of find an environment that's supportive like this, I would say look for those people. Like look for those people you can have really transparent conversations with, who can help talk you through those things and like talk you sort of off of the extreme ends of your own sort of emotions.
Mm-hmm. I think the openness, it flows both ways, right? I mean, I always ask for the team to be open, but without the openness, that's why you have people leave and you're like, I had no idea that person was going to leave. So it takes the whole organization, no matter if you're the leader or the employee, being open. But I think if I go back to Vanessa, your core question, which is, how do you create this? I think I'm not going to deny it's easier when you're at the top, right? It's easier for me to come in and to say, hey guys, we're going to have an open team. But just like all of you, I didn't come out of university and have a vice president level job. I mean, I would have loved that, although I would have failed immediately. But it would have been cool on paper. So I think that, no matter where you are, you can have an influence of the culture of your organization, and you probably already do, if you have this kind of personality, whether you realize it or not. I didn't realize it until, I was called out for not.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking back to former environments I've been in where they were like borderline toxic and really not great. But so, like I referenced earlier about how like Deepika, Marissa, and I have this like really great support network, but those might not have been so readily available at these other places. But I found that what did work for me was I could find someone who was maybe 3 decades older than me, and maybe we had nothing objectively in common, but we somehow just like understood each other. And I would just find this kind of like confidant that I can think of like a distinct person in all these various organizations I've worked at that was that person for me. And it just, that really is what helped keep me going, was just finding someone I could be more unfiltered with, and to kind of talk through the challenges we were having and to try to drive change, because maybe they were more senior than I was. And I agree with what Diana's saying, like it comes from all, and Deepika mentioned it too, like comes from all levels. Like everyone needs to kind of express their passion for this in the day-to-day and in every way. But I definitely find that it's like just the messaging of like community and support and knowing you're not alone is just always gonna, I think, help bring people back and like ground them on getting through things. Cause like we mentioned how most of us fell into toy, but if it had been our lifelong ambition to become a, aerospace engineer, for example, that you might be walking into something that is automatically, not the demographic you want, but it's your passion. So you got to kind of like navigate that, which is definitely a unique challenge to face. So I know that some offices and some environments and some engineering spaces have this sort of sentiment of rigor over niceness. Like you can't have both. It's one or the other. Either you work hard and you get things done, or you're kind to each other. And I think that we definitely have broken that for sure. And we all work exceptionally hard, but we all fundamentally value each other. So anyone have any thoughts on that concept, and how do you do both? How do you do both?
Yeah, I mean, you have to emulate, and I have to do that, right? I have to demonstrate that. Diana has to demonstrate that for people to understand that is what it takes. That's what matters, right? Like we have to be kind to each other. We have to care for each other. And then we have to work hard at all levels. Like if I see Diana, you know, just being super nice and then she goes to lunch for 4 hours, like that's not going to work, right? She's super hardworking. So I'm like, oh yeah, like for sure I can be super kind. I can form these really good relationships. I can lean on those. And then I can work really hard and deliver for my team, right?
Yeah, I was kind of going to say the same thing too, because, you know, we watched Diana and Amanda be in all these meetings. And Diana, I don't know how you do this. You have like 100 people reporting into you and you remember every detail of everything we're doing. But you're so strong and like, you know, you won't let anything slip from like a work perspective. But at the same time, you take our Halloween costume just as seriously, you know, like even though it was COVID and you were on mat leave, we were all like, okay, like Diana's gonna expect this because Halloween costume super important to her. We have to win, and it's like the same energy, like both, you know, the fun aspect of work and like the work aspect of work, I guess, where we just like see you lead through it, right? So we take all of both things seriously because you care about both of those things just as seriously. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel like it comes top down. And when Diana mentioned before that, you know, it's easy as like a VP to start the culture. It's like, oh yeah, like I see it from Diana, you know, because she takes part in any Halloween costume we come up with. We're like, Diana, you need to get into this dinosaur costume. And she's like, okay, done. I'm going to get into this dinosaur costume because that's what the team came up with. And you're such a good player. And then at work, you know, like we can get really serious with meeting our goals and our deliverables. And we want to be the best. And we always want to like keep getting better as a team too. So yeah, I really do think it comes from Diana.
I couldn't imagine thriving in a place where it was rigor only. And I think that most human beings need a level of that human connection and that empathy.
My one piece of advice that I have done through my career to help me get to where I am is always being open to projects and roles, even when they weren't on my path or the project seems kind of beneath me. And I found actually that my biggest success has come from these projects that nobody wants. So they're given to me especially when I was early in my career, but the relationships that I've been able to build. And I find that a project that nobody wants is often really has high exposure because it keeps getting passed down because nobody wants to do it. And I, you know, took these, what anybody would consider bad or beneath them projects. And because of those bad or beneath me projects, I got great exposure and I built great relationships and I had all these opportunities put in front of me. You know, I'm a mechanical and biomedical engineer, but I spent years of my career in supply chain as a project manager, and I didn't know what supply chain was. I would never have been like, yeah, I want to go in supply chain. And I took that role because it was put in front of me and I was open to it. And I would say that, you know, the one point is be open to roles and projects that aren't on your traditional path.
For me, I mean, I've been focused, I think, in my whole career, honestly, which may be kind of a pain, probably for Diana, you feel this, with challenging your leadership and speaking truth to power. Like, it's mandatory, especially as you climb the leadership chain. You must represent your team. You have to listen to their voice and you have to speak on their behalf and you have to create space for them. And it's absolutely mandatory. It's mandatory to drive innovation. It's mandatory to drive problem solving. So for me, that's the one key thing is don't be afraid to challenge. You know, there are respectful ways to do it, certainly. And some people are more open to it than others. But challenge authority, challenge traditions, challenge the way things are done. And part of the reason I love having the process team at Spin Master is their whole reason for being is to do that. It's to look at the way we do things and try to imagine new ways to do them. Like engineering, in my opinion, holds on to a lot of traditional stuff that's not serving it anymore. And we need to challenge that. And we can't be afraid to dismantle it and start rebuilding. Like, so that's like my mission in everything I do is like, you know, how do we build it and make it better?
I think a key takeaway that I would want everybody to get from this talk would be to really be open with your leaders, especially your manager. Like really let them know what you want, because they can see the full picture and they can see your strengths in a way that you don't see it sometimes. So if you let them know like where you really want to go, I think they can like open up those opportunities for you. So I think for me, it's so important to just be open about it, right? And trust leadership. And that's like the biggest thing for me.
I think my key takeaway is that what I've kind of learned over this whole time is that you just can't be afraid of being yourself as a person. I think it's really important that we're not afraid of showing our weak side sometimes and showing that we're people at the end of the day, and that we all live in the same world, and that we shouldn't be afraid of showing that. And if we are having a bad day, then we should try to find those people that we trust so that we can talk to somebody about it and try to find those people in our organization who can help us. And the same way, the other way around. So treat other people as people too. So we need that support, but everybody on the other side of the camera is also a person. So if you think that they don't seem like they're having a good day, then we should try to be supportive on that too, and try to think of them as such. So that's my key takeaway for today.
I really think that my key takeaway is to just truly be authentic and to get engaged. I think engagement is so fundamental, is to really dive into what you're doing, really let your passion and your care show, and it'll just really help you kind of reintegrate into and get connected to why you're doing what you're doing, and your purpose, and really ground you so that you can face challenges and apply these other key takeaways of being authentic, being yourself, speaking up, talking to your leadership. Like all of this is easiest if you're really kind of deep into what you're doing.
What does a positive, inclusive work culture look like to you? The woman from Spin Master will be joining us in a moment to continue this conversation. So, be ready to submit your questions using the Q&A function on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen.